Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on this wonderful Wednesday for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. And today is a significant day as we have the Fed rate decision and, of course, the minutes that are to follow where they'll give us further guidance on the economy. Now, we have sort of veered off of the path of talking about a macro situation that would spur on the cryptocurrency markets. However, we're going to be reintroducing that. This is something I always pay attention to. Not everybody's that interested in kind of macro context, macroeconomic context, and some drivers broadly for markets across the board, not just the cryptocurrency space, which is the most sensitive market, I guess, to things like global liquidity, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll be reintroducing that today. We'll be looking at what to expect from the Fed meeting. Also talking about a scenario for the dollar that was brought up by Julian Bittle that I've been looking at with my Patreons, and the viability of this scenario playing out and what that means for risk assets, crypto being likely the most affected and the one that we've always said is going to offer the best ROI. So we are going to be doing that. Then we've got a hell of a lot of news to get into, guys. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse reveals he discussed with President Trump making XRP a strategic reserve asset for the US. This came from Cointelegraph. I'm not seeing any confirmation of this. I also tried to find the clip of him. I couldn't. Then there's also the official schedule for the Presidential Working Group on Digital Asset Markets. Got news about Tether, which is getting continuously delisted. Also, the Czech Central Bank is looking to kind of Bitcoin standardize. And then we'll finish things off with a little bit of price action. So as always, guys, hell of a lot to get into. Let's get straight into it. Today is the day when the Federal Reserve are going to make their decision on interest rates. Now, this week, Bank of Canada and ECB also doing the same thing. They're both expected to lower rates. The Fed expected to hold rates. If they do that, which looks very probable according to the Fed Watch, 99.5% they leave rates where they are. Theoretically, fundamentally, that should see the dollar gain strength against the likes of the Canadian dollar, which did very well on the back end of Trudeau resigning, which, you know, yes. And also, I try not to let my political preferences shine through too much. Also should do well against the euro, making up the largest portion of the Dixie kind of complex. It's something like 44% against the euro and then other currencies. However, if the dollar rolls here, it's telling of what might be to come in the future and further rate cuts and the path the Dixie may be on more broadly, which of course the dollar going down is kind of like a seesaw because you're looking at Bitcoin versus the US dollar, the SPY versus the US dollar for assets, meaning they should go up. And we're kind of entering, as Julian Bittle has very interesting, I think he's got the best take on the dollar, proposed a kind of 2017, the last time Trump got inaugurated, so elected and then inaugurated, he entered office in January 2017. We're kind of entering a similar scenario for the dollar, which he's highlighting here. And he says interest rates are far too high. The last time Trump said something was too high, it was the dollar, which we're higher today in terms of dollar terms than we were back then, by the way. Back in January 2017, just days before his inauguration, here's what he said. Our companies can't compete with them now because our currency is too strong and it's killing us. Last year, he also called recent strength a tremendous burden on US businesses. Trump understands the impact of a strong dollar, and the same logic applies to high interest rates. They suppress exports, hurt corporate earnings, and slow economic growth. What happens next? Well, the dollar began a significant decline, setting the stage for one of the most pivotal macro moves we've seen in years, triggering a melt-up in risk. Deja vu, I think so. Let's hope this plays out. So this is all very important. So this is the dollar today. It's run into this kind of, we've got this channel here for the dollar. This is obviously the last time he got elected and the downside that we saw. Thus, the upside, just to throw Bitcoin on and put it on a log, that we saw in risk, using Bitcoin as a representative here. Are we going to see that on the back end of a potential similar scenario setting place? And we're going to get further guidance on the dollar, obviously on the back end of what Jerome Powell is doing. Sorry for the kind of overview here. I'm also looking at the potential for this kind of a pattern. Also, when I look at the 10-year yields, oil I'm obviously short on. I think we are looking at a weak dollar scenario, which should ultimately be a great macro backdrop for risk assets, which of course we certainly have technical merit for, not just on Bitcoin, the total cryptocurrency market cap doing exactly what it should be doing, sort of consolidating around all-time highs. Total 2 doing what you would expect when you reach an all-time high, a key level, resistance being interacted with. Total 3 also, similar story. Remember, we've got technical targets for all of these to the upside as well, and others. And broadly, when we look at the space, you know, when it walketh, talketh, and quacketh like a duck, ladies and gentlemen, it's a duck. And this is a kind of macro context that we lose people when we talk about the macro, but it's very important because in this ecosystem of markets, we find ourselves at the kind of bottom of the food chain. That will change in time, certainly as hundreds of trillions of dollars come on chain. And this space becomes more and more important. But as of right now, we're very beholden to the macro tide of things, which I'm suggesting, looking at Julian Bittle's scenario, is going to be supportive for risk. And today, of course, with the Fed meeting, where they're likely not going to hike or lower rates, and we're going to get a lot more clarity on the whole situation. So the Fed meets for the first time since Trump's term started. Here's what to expect. The Fed gathers this week for the first time in the second presidency term of Donald Trump, who was already signaled that he wants lower interest rates. Yep. Market pricing in pointing to near 100%. We looked at it on the Fed Watch tool. Certainty that the rate-setting Federal Open Market Committee will keep the central bank policy rate at the target range of 4.25 to 4.5. It's the right call to stay steady. Former Dallas president Robert Kaplan told CNBC. Yeah, I don't think they want to panic markets. We have looked at the fact that Citi did a release where they looked at the past 14 times the Fed went into a cutting cycle. 12 of those times the markets were higher 12 months later. And we've kind of dismissed this notion of a pivot being bearish. Certainly you can apply that to 2008 and 2000s, but not more broadly. Even as recently as when they cut rates, obviously due to the reverse repo in 2019. So I know I'm losing people, guys. Let's get back to the cryptocurrency space. But this is a great macro backdrop that is ultimately going to support us. And it's important to focus on these things. That's part of what we do here at Allincrypto that makes us very special and unique from the sort of standard crypto channels out there, is we have a broad understanding of markets. This is what I do for a living. And we ultimately use it to help us derive a more probable prediction on the markets, and we specialize in the cryptocurrency markets. If you want to take your step further, I'm doing a full portfolio update today for Patreons, so do check that out. Bullish. This is from Cointelegraph. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse reveals he discussed with President Trump making XRP a strategic reserve asset. He stressed that the US should include a variety of cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin, to support American crypto companies. Now, I think they're going to do kind of an American strategic reserve, just like they've done with Bitcoin through institutions. Remember, the US ETF offerers and US companies are the largest holders of Bitcoin in the world now, collectively. They'll do a similar thing with, so the government might not need to do it themselves. They might sort of allow their institutions to do that. And actually, Brad in the call yesterday, which this is coming on the back end of, the kind of community call, did kind of laugh at JP Morgan's $8 billion projection for the first year of an XRP ETF. I think actually we could even see XRP and some of these assets rival Ethereum in terms of flows. I think Ethereum isn't the one, in my opinion. But this is interesting. I don't know exactly what clip this came from. You can see the Bitcoin Max in the comments. Trader, Bitcoin only. Oof. I think actually on my profile, let me just go home, I tweeted something from David Swartz, who of course ex-NSA, also he was one of the early pioneers of this. He tweets, the crypto movement now seems less libertarian than it ever has, and that makes me a little sad when Satoshi's vision was hijacked with the block wars. This is from Smoke, great guy to follow, certainly if you're interested in XRP and sort of XLM and some of the ISO cryptos. The official schedule of the President's Working Group on Digital Asset Markets, the timeline for digital asset regulations in the United States, February 2025. Agency must list all current rules and, so next month, policies that impact digital assets. March 2025, agency must decide which rules to keep, change, or create and share their recommendations. The working group must give the president a plan for regulating digital assets, focusing on stablecoins, market rules, consumer protection, and risk management. So this is all still to come. I think there's this umming and ahhing when it comes to the markets, because people are like, well, why aren't we, we've got all this great news. Why aren't we kind of proceeding in the manner that you would expect? But it will come. Bitcoin's very much just range bound at the moment. Again, your totals are just consolidating around kind of all-time highs. The important thing is we've had those initiatory moves. And this is kicking off a broader uptrend that's certainly signaled when we look at the crypto market through the lens of the total space. And also we just started the video off with looking at a dollar scenario, Julian Bittle's dollar scenario, which sees everything do very well. Risks do well broadly. Very interesting, isn't it? We sort of said Nvidia's going to fill the gap that it created. And it will. And actually, I think Nvidia's going above and beyond, and we're not worried about the stock market particularly at all. But to move away from that and just finish things off on the news, because quite a lot. Also, we see further delisting of Tether. Remember, we do have that downside target for Tether. And we've kind of been able to derive, I think this is just setting up a right shoulder and what is a broad head and shoulder, taking Tether's dominance from 4%, and stablecoin dominance typically comes down in a bull market anyway, down to 1.3. But Crypto.com have delisted Tether. They've given users until the 31st of March. We're likely going to see this continue, certainly within the EU and potentially more broadly. Tether CEO actually said we're not fussed about Europe and the West, really. We're more focused about like South America, these sort of nations. It's kind of half true. Of course, they're going to be fussed about the largest markets in the world. They probably just know that they don't stand a chance because they're ultimately going to champion their own companies. The Czech central bank head wants now to buy billions of euros worth of Bitcoin to diversify the bank's reserves. And we reported on this. So do become a subscriber to the channel, guys. Do also check out our Twitter. We're posting stuff daily. Very proud of what we're putting out there. But there's a lot going on. It's going to be very interesting. If the Fed do have a sort of after speech, we will stream that here on the channel. So do watch out for that. But it's going to be very interesting to see what the dollar's reaction to everything is and what kind of further guidance that gives us. And is Julian Bittle's scenario going to play out, which kind of down dollar corresponds with what we're looking at on the cryptocurrency market as a whole through the lens of total, Bitcoin, where altcoins are at and what we're expecting. The puzzle is kind of coming together, and of course there's lots of news. People are a little bit frustrated with the price action. These things take time, but eventually I do think they will be realized. So that's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. Have a magical Wednesday, or a wonderful Wednesday, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.